Hi, I'm George Kaminsky with the Washington Department of Ecology, presenting Adaptive Building with Nature for a Resilient Coast, along with my co-author, David Cottrell, who will appear during this presentation. This talk is based on a project experience at North Cove, Washington over the past few years. This opening slide is a photo taken from the project site in June 2018, when our beach monitoring program began. Prior to this, since the late fall of 2017, critical sections of eroding sand barrier received relatively light treatments of quarry spall materials at the base of the erosion scarp to test the concept of a dynamic revetment and determine the feasibility for reducing the rate of shoreline retreat. Small-scale experiments proved to be promising, and funding was secured to begin a regional-scale construction project in the fall of 2018. This photo is from February 2019 and shows the condition of the dynamic revetment that was constructed during the winter at the same location as in the first slide. The project was successful in halting shoreline retreat during the winter and withstood storm events that overtopped the revetment. Additional large woody debris was placed at the revetment crest along sections with relatively high wave run-up to dissipate energy and reduce overtopping. This next photo shows the same shoreline reach in June 2020. Note the elevated sand level along the revetment with driftwood accumulation, and a mostly vegetated ridge above where large woody debris was placed at the revetment crest. At this time, the revetment had gone through 2 winter seasons and was in the process of seasonal beach building. A summary of the changes along the coast over this time is shown by direct comparison of these photos. In short, over 2 years, there is substantial evolution from an erosional state to a stable state, with the coast trending toward progradation, with the accretion of driftwood and sand, and growth of vegetation in response to the construction of the dynamic revetment and the placement of large woody debris along the crest. The dynamic revetment at North Cove is intended to simulate the functions of natural cobble berms in the backshore zone of composite beaches in the region. In this case, poorly sorted quarry spall material is used in the construction. The quarry spalls abrade and round over time in a high wave energy environment and is more economical than sourcing gravel and rounded cobble. The setting for this project is along a historically and rapidly eroding reach of coast at the entrance to Willapa Bay. Over the past several decades, the shoreline has typically retreated tens of meters per year. It has often been called Washaway Beach, though that is only a characterization of its historical state, not an official name. We focus here starting with the shoreline configuration in 1999. Note the 2 buildings with green rooftops in the lower right. A persistent effort was taken by the owner of the property to protect it from erosion over the past 2 decades, while the adjacent shoreline on both sides retreated by about 175 meters, resulting in the formation of a headland that has been sustained by routine placement of large rock. Most of the residential community has been lost over the past few decades, as you can see through this time lapse of aerial imagery. On the next slides, I will show the photos taken from this area from a decade ago that characterize the impact of erosion on the North Cove community until recently. Each year, a different set of homes and properties would be either lost to the erosion or left hanging on the edge until the following winter. Many homeowners tried makeshift efforts, such as cabling down trees and debris against the erosion scarp in an attempt to slow the erosion. The loss of homes resulted in much debris along the coast that created additional hazards and impacts. Here you can see examples of a fallen home, a septic tank, concrete slabs and foundations, and building material wreckage spread throughout the intertidal beach, with iron pipes sticking out from the sand where homes used to be. Note the house with the green roof. This is on the property that today forms the artificial headland that was shown previously in the aerial imagery. A few years ago, the North Cove community formed a coalition for action called Wash Away No More. Their efforts included trying to slow the erosion at critical locations and road ends by placing quarry rock materials along the erosion scarp, based on the knowledge of stability shown by composite beaches elsewhere along the Washington and Oregon coasts. In this talk, I'll focus on examples from these 2 sites shown by the red arrows. At the arrow to the right toward the southeast end of the project area is the site where a concerted effort was used to build a wider backshore zone in front of the dynamic revetment by capturing sand and driftwood from the longshore transport by constructing a series of log structures and a terminal log groin. At the arrow to the left, a similar effort was taken, with more reliance on the construction of a relatively small rock berm placed along the shore at above the mean higher high water line. The rock berm is designed to dissipate waves and enhance the deposition of sand in front of the dynamic revetment and provide a more stable backshore suitable for the introduction and growth of native vegetation. In the next slide, my co-author David Cottrell will explain the construction efforts and beach response at the location of the right arrow.
So in 2016, this was a vertical 6-foot scarp that was regularly in collision on all the winter high tides and storms. And we were losing 50 to 100 feet a year at this point. And so in 2017 and 18, we started building a dynamic revetment face on it. And it quickly started accumulating material. When we saw the driftwood starting to build, we continued to add to it and interlock it to create a structure that would retain sand. And as that sand started building, we started adding dune grass to the system, both seeds and rhizomes. And so here you see now, this is basically a healthy dune, and the beach with no reflection is building beyond. Who knows where the future goes? It's all good.
Now we'll take a look at the site toward the updrift end of the project. The blue cabin shown in this June 2018 photo is hanging over the edge of the erosion scarp at this point. The property owner was in the process of building a log fence fronting the structure. To the left of the cabin along the scarp was the end of one of the test sections of dynamic revetment installed in 2017. A scattering of wood debris from recently fallen trees from the erosion juts out from the modest seasonal recovery of beach at this time. This is a view of the beach cabin in January 2019, showing the constructed dynamic revetment built under and just fronting the cabin to cover the previous erosion scarp. Note the high tide line with the recent deposits of woody debris and wrack along the revetment toe at this time. By mid-March 2019, which we consider to be the usual end of the winter storm season, the upper beach has already accumulated sand along the revetment toe with a notable increase in beach elevation compared to the previous summer. By mid-August 2019, the Sea Rocket seasonal vegetation began to grow significantly further seaward than usual for this location, while vegetation also began to take hold along the dynamic revetment. For additional reference point, take a look at this piece of driftwood with a face carving. You will see this in the next couple of photos. In November 2019, a rock berm was constructed above the mean higher high water line, designed to dissipate wave energy and accumulate sediment fronting the dynamic revetment. Note the sparse dune grass beginning to take hold on the landward side of the berm, while the Sea Rocket has already died out for the winter season. Now, closer to present, in mid-June 2020, we find the rock berm nearly covered with sand on both sides, with substantial accumulation on the landward side and an even wider expanse of the seasonal Sea Rocket vegetation compared to mid-August 2019, as well as an increased density of dune grass. David Cottrell will further explain the project and beach evolution on the next slide.
In 2016, when we're standing here, there was a 6-foot scarp, and we were losing, about 50 to 100 feet a year through the homes in this community. You see the blue cabin behind me? That was hanging over the edge when we started this. We built a dynamic revetment in 2017 along the whole scarp face here, and it almost immediately took the collision energy out, and we started seeing some sand building up. So that's when we first really started getting a beach out here. Last year, we added to it a small berm out here at a much lower slope to intercept the incoming waves and take that first run of wave energy out. And what we discovered is when we did that, those waves were carrying a lot of sand, and as they ran out on the far side, they deposited it, and as sand started building up there, we kind of expected that. What I wasn't prepared for is taking the energy out as that wave goes over. reflection is gone, and the beach on this near side started building up as well. So gradually this starts burying down. In some places it's disappeared entirely. We planted dune grass into the backside of that to help stabilize it. That's taking over and collecting a lot of the wind-blown sand, and I'm expecting within 1 to 2 years this will just look like a natural dune.
Finally, for some data. To complement the previous changes described with photos and video, here we have beach profiles plotted from our time series from June 2018 to February 2020, collected from the same site near the blue cabin shown in the previous slides. Most importantly, compare the initial dark blue line from June 2018 to the red line from early 2020 in February. The data show a significant increase in beach elevation by as much as a meter, while the shoreline advanced by over 40 meters in the vicinity of the mean higher high water line. Keep in mind this is a comparison of the beach profile in 2018 when the seasonal beach recovery would have already been underway, compared to late winter 2020 when the beach would have been in its most erosional state. Note the location of the rock berm shown here. It looks like a pinnacle around 4.5 meter elevation on the February profile. This was constructed just prior to the November survey, and you can see the beach accretion fronting the rock berm comparing the November 2019 data in light green to the February 2020 data shown in red. Note the significant increase in beach volume of 193 cubic meters per meter of shoreline between the first survey in June 2018 and February 2020. Now note the significant increase in beach volume of 122 cubic meters per meter of shoreline between the previous winter in February 2019 and February 2020. Much of the accumulation is across the mid to upper beach since the previous year, corresponding well to what was shown in the previous photographs. I want to conclude this talk with a summary of some of the main lessons learned from the project. While the overall design, construction, and maintenance of the project is founded on the knowledge of composite beaches and natural backshore cobble berms, the most important aspect of the project in adaptive management is keen observation of the response to the interventions, energy dissipation, beach recovery, and sediment accretion processes. In order to build with nature, we need to understand and work in tandem with nature's construction processes. This is logical. Yet much of our collective knowledge and scientific research has been traditionally motivated by understanding coastal erosion and destructive processes rather than constructive processes. A second point is to pay careful attention to stable beach morphology, slopes, and contours that tend to be more resilient to storms and rapidly recover. We aim to mimic those morphologies with our design and follow nature's lead. Adaptive construction has enabled greater engagement with nature. For example, we learned that an active cobble layer, particle size gradation and sorting, and the integration of sand with the cobble material is important to the condition and performance of the dynamic revetment. Construction is enabled with energy dissipation and complementary use of rock berms, woody debris, and vegetation, aided by attributes such as mild slopes, surface roughness, friction, and permeability. Incremental construction allows for the integration of complementary materials over time. Allowing natural processes to engage with the construction allowed sediments to be sorted, layered, and distributed with the co-development of equilibrium planforms that cannot be directly constructed. The integration of wood along the crest and slope of the cobble revetment leads to sand deposition and driftwood accumulation. And then, vegetation introduction likewise leads to more sand accumulation and together provide a more resilient coast. A final point is that functional performance is enhanced by small-scale complexity with regard to cobble size, large woody debris, and irregular morphology that contributes to the regional variability, breaks up longshore and cross-shore transport, and accommodates sediment deposition and enhances stability. I would like to thank the supporters of our monitoring program, as well as my coworkers at the Department of Ecology and collaborators Chris Blankensop and Paul Bale, with whom we've recently submitted 2 articles related to this project to the journal Coastal Engineering. Thank you.